Hello, dear class. Thank you, Composition 1 students, for watching the videos and learning from them. Today's session is going to focus on this topic that probably you have wondered a lot about and you have struggled a lot in order to avoid the problem. And probably you have now come up with an idea of what we're going to study. Well, the topic that we're going to study today, I know you're exhausted and I know you're tired, and this is the end of the semester, so God knows that we need vacation. But we're going to study this last topic that I am going to explain for you, and this one is modifier placement. When we talk about modifier placement, we are talking about a topic that might not be related to composition in that sense of punctuation marks, but it is closely related to a problem that has to do with logic because it changes the meaning of the sentences. As a very basic principle, take into account that modifiers are like teenagers. They fall in love with whatever they are next to. So make sure they are next to something they are a modifier. Why do we say that? Though it sounds funny and it sounds judgmental, it is true. When teenagers fall in love, they stick to the person they feel they have feelings for. So the same happens when we have modifiers that stick to the wrong word. They want to be attached to the word, but probably it's not the word they really intend to modify. So we've got to be very careful with that. Today, I'm going to list and I'm going to explain 3 ways in which we can make these mistakes, 3 different names for each of them: dangling modifiers, misplaced modifiers, and squinting modifiers, and some correction methods that we can follow in order to avoid them and to have better sentences and better paragraphs. Let's get started with the first one. The first one is misplaced modifiers. Some modifiers, especially simple modifiers such as only, just, nearly, or barely, have the bad habit of slipping into the wrong place in a sentence. Consider the example you see here and tell me what the meaning of barely kicked something means here. The sentence says, he barely kicked the ball 20 yards. What does barely refer to? A more specific sentence may suggest he kicked that ball barely 20 yards. So we mean that the distance was nearly 20 yards. While in the first one, we say that probably he wanted to kick the ball, but he didn't in fact, because it says he barely but didn't do it. This confusion has been the argument for grammarians for many years. The issue of the proper placement of only has long been argued or discussed among grammarians. Many careful writers, on the other hand, will insist that only has to be placed immediately before the word or the phrase it modifies. If I say, for example, the sentence, I only gave him $3. Some people will believe that if I say, I gave him only $3, I'm saying the same. Some grammarians, however, have argued that such precision is not really necessary, that there is no danger of misreading. I only gave him $3, and that only can safely and naturally be placed between the subject and the verb. The argument has been going on for hundreds of years, but here's my question. If I say the first sentence, I only gave him $3, means that I didn't do anything else. I didn't kiss him goodbye, or I didn't say something else, but I gave him $3 and then that was all. While in the second one, I gave him only $3. Only is modifying 3. So I'm saying that I didn't give him more than 3. I gave him only $3. So you see how, or you see why this matters? Modifiers are words, phrases, or clauses that add description to sentences. Typically, you will find a modifier snuggled right next to or either in front of or behind the word it logically describes. Take the simple one-word adjective blue to be inserted in the sentence you have below, and you tell me, where should it go? Where should we place the adjective blue in the sentence? At a downtown leadership, Kian bought a truck from a salesman with a come-over. Should we locate the word blue next to leadership? A blue down leadership? A blue Kian? Kian is the person? Of course not. Logic dictates that blue can describe only one word, truck. So we must place the modifier next to the word truck. At a downtown leadership, Kian bought a blue truck from a salesman with a comb over. So the place where you insert the adjectives or the words that modify the noun matter. They are really important. In a similar manner, multi-word phrases and clauses often go right next to the word they describe. Here are some examples. Gazing out the window, Paul missed the homework assignment that Professor Suromsky wrote on the board. Gazing out the window is a participle phrase describing Paul, the noun that follows, and it is next to the word it modifies. Sam gobbled the sandwich, which was soggy with tomato juice, as he rushed to class. Which was soggy with tomato juice is an adjective clause, and it describes the word sandwich, the noun before it. As the hurricane approached, we watched the tree branches waving in the strong breeze. Waving in the strong breeze doesn't refer to us, but we're not waving in the strong breeze, right? What we're waving in the strong breeze were the branches, the noun that is just in front of it. Sometimes a writer places the modifier too far from the word it modifies, or it should describe. Born in the confusion is a placement modifier, is a misplaced modifier, sorry. An error that causes confusion. Here you have some more examples. Churning in the Atlantic Ocean, we anxiously watched the weather report for information about the hurricane. Churning in the Atlantic Ocean is a participle phrase. In the current sentence, it is describing the pronoun we. How illogical! We cannot churn in an ocean. Here you have a second example. Raymond wore his one-colored shirt to the job interview, which was unfortunately stained with yellow mustard. This clause that is highlighted or that is underlined here, which was unfortunately stained with yellow mustard, is an adjective clause. In the sentence here above, it is describing the word interview, not the person, right? The noun in front, but an interview can't get stained with mustard. So it's illogical. What happens then is that it is too far from the word it is modifying. Professor Jones, who was late with another essay, waited for the slacker student. Who was late with another essay is an adjective clause. In this sentence, it is describing Professor Jones, the noun before it, but he's not the identified slacker. The student is a slacker because he was submitting the essay late again. So the position where you place this clause matters, and it changes the meaning of the sentence, creating a misplaced modifier. A misplaced modifier, as I told you 2 times already, is a word, phrase, or clause, and that is improperly separated from the word it modifies or describes. Because of this separation, sentences with this error often sound awkward, ridiculous, or confusing. Furthermore, they can be downright illogical. Example of this. On her way home, Jan found a gold man's watch. The example above suggests that a gold man owns a watch. The man is made of gold, or the watch. Misplaced modifiers can usually be corrected, so it's the way you correct them, by moving the modifier to a more sensible place in the sentence, generally next to the word it modifies. Example, on her way home, Jan found a man's gold watch. Now it is the watch that is made of gold and not the man. There are several kinds of misplaced modifiers. The first one that we can identify is misplaced adjectives. They are incorrectly separated from the nouns they modify and almost always distort the meaning of the sentence. Here you have an example. The child ate a cold dish of cereal for breakfast this morning. A correction for this one can be, the child ate a dish of cold cereal. We're talking about the cereal that is cold, not the dish. For breakfast this morning. Another example, the turned student's book lay on the desk. We're not talking about the student being turned, but the book, right? So it will be, the student's turned book lay on the desk. Sentences like these are common in everyday speech and ordinary cause their listeners no trouble because you can emphasize the words and then the listeners can understand. However, they are quite imprecise and therefore should have no place in writing. So we have to be very careful with them. Second one, placement of adverbs can also be a misplaced modifier. This one can also change the meaning in sentences. For example, these sentences illustrate that you have here how the placement of just can change the sentence's meaning. Just means only John was picked, no one else in this one. Just John was picked to host a program. Just means that John was picked now. John was just picked to host a program. It talks about time at that moment. And the third example says just means that John hosted the program, not nobody else or nothing else, sorry. John was picked to host just the program, not probably the party or something else. Often misplacing an adverb not only alters the intended meaning but also creates a sentence whose meaning is highly unlikely or completely ridiculous. This sentence, for example, suggests that we brought a lunch slowly. Take a look at the example. We ate the lunch that we had bought slowly. So we slowly bought the lunch. To repair the meaning of this sentence that looks ridiculous that way, we will move the adverb slowly so that it is never confusing and that it is near the word ate. We slowly, right, ate the lunch that we had brought. And that's different. Watch out for adverbs such as only, just, nearly, merely, and almost. They are often misplaced and cause an unintended meaning. This sentence, for example, means that I only contributed the money. I only contributed $10 to the fund for orphan children. A repeat version of this one may be that I contributed only $10. I contributed only $10 to the fund for orphan children. Well, in the first one, I only contributed. That's confusing. But when you place it next to the quantity and you say only $10, then you are intending that it was only that amount of money, right? Like adjectives, adverbs are commonly misplaced in everyday speech and may not cause listeners difficulty. However, such sentences are quite imprecise and therefore should have no place in writing. There are also misplaced phrases that may cause a sentence to sound awkward and may increase the meaning that does not really make sense. The problem sentences below that you see here contain misplaced phrases that modify the wrong nouns. To fix the errors and clarify the meaning, you have to put the phrases next to the noun they are trying or supposed to modify. Example 1. The dealer sold the Cadillac to the buyer with leather seats. The buyer with leather seats? The dealer sold the car, right, with leather seats to the buyer. That's different, that's clear. Example 2. A corner smoking pipes? The three bankers talked quietly in the corner smoking pipes. A corrected version of this one is the three bankers smoking pipes talked quietly in the corner. Third example, a house made of barbed wire. They saw a fence behind a house made of barbed wire. The house? They saw a fence. The fence was made of barbed wire. So they saw a fence made of barbed wire behind the house. You see how they change if you don't place them correctly? Misplaced clauses may also cause the sentence to sound awkward and may create a meaning that does not make sense. The problem sentences below contain misplaced clauses that modify the wrong nouns. To fix these errors and clarify the meaning, put the clauses next to the noun they are supposed to modify, please. A battered woman. The waiter served a dinner roll to the woman that was all battered. So the woman was battered. A corrected version is The waiter served a dinner roll that was all buttered to the woman. It was the dinner, not the woman, right? Another example says, a hamper that Ralph wore. Ralph piled all of his clothes in a hamper that he had worn. Impossible, illogical, right? So Ralph piled all his clothes that he had worn in the hamper. That's all different. Be careful. In correcting a misplaced modifier, don't create a sentence with two possible meanings, please. The teacher said on Monday she would return our essays. The teacher said on Monday. Did she say it on Monday or she will return the essays on Monday? Weird. We don't know, right? It creates confusion. So the problem, did the teacher say this on Monday or will she return the essays on Monday? Correction for this one. The teacher said she will return her essays on Monday. Or on Monday, comma, I will suggest a comma there. The teacher said that she will return our essays. When? Probably next week. Now, a second example or a second problem that we find when we talk about modifier placement is dangling modifiers. When we begin a sentence with a modifying word, phrase, or clause, we must make sure that the next thing that comes along can in fact be modified by that modifier. When a modifier improperly modifies something, it is called dangling modifier. It often happens with the beginning participle phrases that we see. Making dangling participles an all too common phenomenon. That's common, and we make this mistake a lot. What do we need to do? Well, we need to pay attention. In the sentence below, we have an impossible sentence. We cannot have a car changing its own oil unless we're talking about Lightning McQueen, right? But Lightning McQueen is animated, and those cars do not exist in real life. The confusion says changing the oil every 30,000 miles, the car seemed to run better. A repair work for this one can be changing the oil every 3,000 miles. A person, Fred, found he could get much better gas mileage. Here, what we're doing is that we are providing a subject that clearly is being modified by the present participle phrase that we have at the beginning. Now, a participle phrase followed by an expletive construction will often be a dangling participle, but the expletive construction is probably not a good idea anyway. This faulty sentence can be remediated by changing the participle phrase into a full-fledged clause with a subject and a verb. Take a look at the revision. First, see the problem. Changing the oil every 3,000 miles, there is an easy way to keep your car running smoothly, but still it is confusing. And instead of fixing the dangle modifier, we are still having a mixed and logical construction. So how do we change it to make it better? If we change the oil 3,000 miles, every 3,000 miles, comma, we can keep our car running smoothly. So we're using the same subject here and the same subject in the independent clause. A participle phrase followed by a passive verb is also apt to be a dangler because the real actor of the sentence will be disguised. So it will be confusing. Changing the oil every 3,000 miles, the car was kept in excellent condition. Still, it seems like the car is the one that is modified by all these participle phrases. An improved version of this one might suggest changing the oil every 3,000 miles, we kept a car in excellent condition. And that is all different. An infinitive phrase can also dangle. The infinitive phrase below should probably modify the persons or the person who set up the exercise program. Take a look at the example. To keep the young recruits interested in getting in shape, an exercise program was set up for the summer months. The repaired version of this one, or a better idea, can suggest to keep the young recruits interested in getting in shape, comma, the coaching staff set up an exercise program for the summer months. Now we are suggesting who the actor is or who the doer of the action is. But in the previous example, an exercise program cannot do that. A person can. So when we're talking about dangling modifiers, we're talking about a phrase or a clause that is not clearly and logically related to the word or words it modifies. Two notes about dangling modifiers that you might find interesting and important to know. Unlike a misplaced modifier, the first one that we studied, a dangling modifier cannot be corrected by simply moving into a different place in a sentence. Why? Because it involves more than just moving. In most cases, the dangling modifier appears at the beginning of the sentence, although it can come also at the end, but still the sense of the sentence might be destroyed or it might be still confusing. Sometimes a dangling modifier error occurs because the sentence fails to specify anything to which the modifier can refer, so there is no clear-cut subject that it modifies. Looking toward the west, a funnel-shaped cloud stirred up dust. This sentence you see does not specify who is looking toward the west. In fact, there is nothing at all in the sentence to which the modifying phrase looking toward the west can logically refer. Since the modifier looking toward the west is sitting next to funnel-shaped cloud, the sentence suggests that the cloud is doing the looking. And you cannot have a cloud do that because cloud is a non-animated thing, right? So it's impossible or illogical. You can see here another example. When 9 years old, my mother enrolled in medical school. This sentence means that my mother enrolled in medical school when she was only 9 years old. She was a genius, or my sentence is wrong. At other times, the dangling modifier is placed next to the word or the wrong noun or the noun substitute or noun equivalent. Walking to the movies, the cloudburst drenched Jim. Can a cloudburst walk? Because of the placement of walking to the movies, this sentence suggests that the cloudburst is walking to the movies, even though a possible walker, Jim, is mentioned later. It's far from the word it intends to modify is true, but it is not a matter of just moving the modifier and placing it next to Jim, because if not, that would be the cloudburst drenched Jim walking to the movies. And if you say that, still you don't know who's walking to the movies, if the cloudburst or Jim. So a better version of this one is needed in order to help the problem. Having been fixed the night before, Priscilla could use the car. Since having been fixed the night before is placed next to the word Priscilla, the sentence means that Priscilla was fixed the night before. As the previous examples show, the angle modifiers result in inaccurate, and sometimes ridiculous or ludicrous statements. How to correct dangling modifiers? Well, dangling modifiers may be corrected in two general ways. And I say general because every sentence is different and every writer is different. So you may have mistakes that are probably needing more changes. But the first one says, leave the modifier as it is. Later, change the main part of the sentence so that it begins with the term actually modified. So place it next to the word it intends to modify. This change will put the modifier next to the term it modifies. But what happens in this example? Does this dangling modifier, looking toward the west, a funnel-shaped cloud stirred up dust? It is illogical. How can we correct it? Looking toward the west, I saw a funnel-shaped cloud stirring up dust. Now the sentence means that I was looking toward the west when that happened. Using the same method, this dangling modifier, walking to the movies, the cloudburst drenched Jim, can be corrected into walking to the movies, Jim was drenched by the cloudburst. And here you see, from active, it changed to passive. But here we have the word Jim directly connected to the participle phrase that is modifying it. Correction method 2. Change the dangle modifier phrase to a subordinate clause, creating a subject and a verb. Leave the rest of the sentence as it is. Thus, this dangle modifier, when 9 years old, my mother enrolled in medical school, that is illogical, can be changed or corrected to when I was 9 years old, comma, my mother enrolled in medical school. Now the sentence means that I, not my mother, was 9 years old when she started med school. Using the same method, having been fixed the night before, Priscilla could use the car can be improved since the car had been fixed the night before, comma, Priscilla could use it. Now it's different. We made this one a clause. And now a third problem can be squinting modifiers, the third modifier that we are going to study in this video. A third problem in modifier placement is described as the squinting modifier. This is an unfortunate result for an adverb's ability to pop up almost anywhere in a sentence. Structurally, the adverb may function fine, so grammatically it may be okay, but the meaning can be obscure and ambiguous. And remember the topic we studied previously last week. We cannot have sentences that are illogical or awkward because our reader gets confused or may have one or two ideas from the same sentence, and that is not effective. A squinting modifier is a word that describes something that is out of place. It is out of place because it could modify the word or phrase that comes before or after it. Squinting modifiers are a type of misplaced modifier, and they can change the meaning of sentences. This is because the intention of the sentence is unclear. A result would be that two different sentences will exist, and then the reader would not be sure about one thing being said or another one. See the examples here. In the sentence below, do the students seek advice frequently, or can they frequently improve their grades by seeking advice? You can tell from the sentence because the adverb often is squinting. Squinting means this. Do you see the cat's eyes? They look like if they're going in two different directions. They never meet parallel, but they go in this direction. So probably they are squinting, so you don't know if it's seeing that one or that one. So when we have this eye problem, we probably are focused on one thing, but the target is probably not clear for the one who's seeing us because our eyes move in different directions. So here, the problem is the following. Look at the example. Students who seek their instruction's advice often can improve their grades. A second version of this one suggests students who often seek their instructor's advice can improve their grades. And a third one says students who seek their instructor's advice can often improve their grades. In this one, students who often seek means that they not always seek for advice. Often, sometimes, they do it, but they do it on a regular basis. And in the second one, it means students who seek their instructor's advice can often improve, but they don't improve all the time. Can often improve, but we don't guarantee that because of their advice that they receive from the instructor, they will do good. Occasionally, a word or phrase can be placed so that it could refer to either one or two sentence elements. This is known as a squinting modifier too. You see examples here. Post offices are open on Saturdays only in the country. This is an incorrect sentence. Post offices are open only on Saturdays in the country. And another version of this one suggests post offices are open on Saturdays in the country only. Do you see now the words that they are modifying? Post offices are open on Saturdays only in the country, not in the countryside. Incorrect because it is confusing. That's what I understood. Post offices are open only on Saturdays. not any other day, but Saturdays in the country. And the third one says post offices are open on Saturdays in the country only. So, what are we doing here? We're specifying what word we intend to modify with the word only. The adverb only is trying to say something here only on Saturdays, and here in the country only, anywhere else but in the country. Why should we care about squinting modifiers? A squinting modifier makes a written sentence ambiguous. Sentences with squinting modifiers are normally not ambiguous when spoken. The same that happens with misplaced modifiers or dangling modifiers. When you speak, you probably can correct that, and it is due to voice intonation that you will clarify the meaning. However, you must avoid squinting modifiers when writing because it causes confusion. Fixing a squinting modifier can be really simple, as fixing the other ones. You can eliminate the ambiguity by changing the position of the squinting modifier or by restructuring your sentence. Example, cycling up hills strengthens your quadriceps quickly. Doing this helps you to improve quickly. But do I really mean that? Or do I mean that cycling up quickly strengthens your quadriceps? It depends on what you want to say. So you will either place it next to cycling heals quickly, it strengthens, or you will use the word quickly at the beginning to say that quickly doing all this action will result in something. Taking a moment to think clearly about the issue improves your chances. Taking a moment to think clearly. So here I'm saying that to think, I need to think clearly, right? The word that is being modified is the word think. But what if I want to say that clearly, taking a moment to reflect or to think about the issue improves my chances? It is confusing, right? So you have to place it next to the word it modifies to avoid any confusion and not to have two interpretations of the same idea. It was pretty much what I had with me today in order to teach you this last topic that I'm going to elaborate on. Thank you very much for watching. Take your notes, make questions, and be ready to solve the practice. Have a wonderful day and a nice weekend. Take care. See you next week. Bye bye.